Good morning, Gateway. It's lovely to be with you this morning. This morning I'm going to talk with you about vulnerability and trust. I know that last week we talked a bit about different relationships, and Noel and Becky brought some wisdom in that. And they've asked Andy and I to share about our experience in relationships. And I'm an art therapist and deal with relationships every single day, and often what people struggle with is being vulnerable and that risk of letting something vulnerable out of you, something precious. I wonder what you struggle most in relationships with other people. For me, and as I said, most people that I work with, and I would assume that it's human nature, but I'm learning the precious, the beauty of vulnerability in relationships, but also pushing against my natural desire to protect the things that are most precious to me, that I hold really dear, the secrets and everyone has those things that they grew up with that are hard to talk about, that are you might think that it makes you look weak. For every relationship, there is a requirement for different amounts of vulnerability. And so in my working relationships, there's only a small amount of vulnerability that I need to, it's a different amount of vulnerability that I need to give to my work colleagues and to my boss to build on that relationship. But we need vulnerability and trust in relationships to grow. When we share our insecurities, our worries, burdens, hopes and dreams with each other, it allows us to stand together and give each other the support and the strength we need to keep going. One of the vital things that I talk to my clients about is the strength that we have in numbers. For every person to get better and to do well at life, they need a community around them, a strong amount of people in their family or their friends network, their churches, the groups that they go to connect with people. We need people around us, and God created us to be in community with each other. And there's so many beautiful things in the Bible about living with each other and sharing in community. And God wants us to go to Him when things are tough. He wants us to share with Him the things that we're scared about, the things that are important to us. He wants to be involved in our relationships as well. And for our relationship with God to grow, we need to be vulnerable with Him, come to Him on our hands and knees, and sometimes, look, I've been there. I've been on my hands and knees, and I've called out to God in ultimate vulnerability and just calling out for His help. Over and over again, God shows us that He will never ever give up on us, especially when we feel like our flame is about to go out, when we're at our lowest, when we are but an ember, this small spark. When we're feeling at our lowest, God says that He'll never give up on us, and He says it in Matthew 12:20-21. It says, "A bruised reed He will not break, and a smouldering wick He will not snuff out, till He has brought justice through to victory. In His name the nations put their hope." And I found myself in these moments on my knees, just gripping onto hope, gripping onto the hope that God will pull me out. It's like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in quicksand in this huge muddy puddle, and life can be like that sometimes, this dense, mud that you're trying to wade through that that is so thick and so hard to get out of that you just need that hand to grab onto and to pull you out and rescue you. That's the only thing that's going to get you through. And God promises that He will be there for us to ignite that flame, to help us through that time when we need Him most. Vulnerability is hard. I described to a client the other day, for me, vulnerability is like pushing open a really heavy door with those big metal spikes in it, and you're leaning against it, and even when you're being vulnerable with someone, you're holding that spiky door open, and it's tough and it's painful and it's hard. But when we're vulnerable with other people, and that allows us, it allows them to be vulnerable with us, and then our relationship grows, it strengthens, and it, even if someone isn't vulnerable with us straight away, that trust has grown, and that means that we can be there for them when they need it most. It creates that trust and safety that every relationship needs to grow and flourish. There's the risk. There's the element of risk when we are vulnerable with other people, that they won't hold our vulnerability as precious as we would hold our vulnerability. And it takes courage. It takes courage to step out and be vulnerable with those people, with people that are closest to us. I know that times when my relationship with Andy has grown so much, I'm usually in tears and holding on to something that is precious, and then I let it go and I give it out to him, and he embraces it. And it's the same with friends and family. I risk this preciousness and I give it out, and they catch it and they embrace it with really soft, gentle hands, and they look after it. And I trust them with that information, and I trust them with, essentially it's part of my heart that I'm giving over and sharing with these people. And then they know when I've shared that with them, they can too share something that's equally as vulnerable with them. Trusting others with our vulnerability takes courage, and it takes a step into something that is unseen. It's an act on faith. That's essentially what trust is, and we are having faith in the person that we are giving over these precious qualities of ourself to. Faith in yourself, and faith in the other person, and faith in the Lord to continue His protection and promise that He will never let you go. It takes a lot, and being vulnerable with others and trusting them with essentially our core part of who we are. It's a risk, but it's a risk that is so worth it. It's what will make us stronger and be with each other more. It says in Hebrews 11:1, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see." And this is it. This is what relationships are. We are having faith in the other people that we share life with, and we are being vulnerable and stepping out into a place that is unknown, and we haven't been there before. And every relationship has that. Even the person that I have a conversation with at work or on the street, my kids. Trust in relationships doesn't grow without the willingness for us to be vulnerable. They go hand in hand, and I have this image of this or of that. Trust and vulnerability do not come separately in relationships. It's like a rope with cords, a plait. Trust and vulnerability are key to making a relationship work. And when we're not willing to share our vulnerabilities with those people who are closest to us particularly, then these relationships cannot strengthen, especially marriages and families and people that you do life with in a close proximity. If you cannot trust them and trust them with your biggest insecurities, then that's when relationships break down, because that security and that safety is not felt on either side. God says to us in 2 Timothy 1:7, it's quite a well-known verse, 2 Timothy 1:7, "For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power, love and self-control." This vulnerability, and it's so hard, but He has given us the strength and the power and the self-control to share what is close to us. I wonder from here if you're willing to be vulnerable with God. Are you willing to be vulnerable with God and other people to help your relationships grow and flourish? I would encourage you to ask that of yourself, and it might be a daily thing. Am I willing to trust this person with what is precious with me? It's not about divulging and having a word vomit about everything that you've ever done in your whole life. That's not vulnerability. Vulnerability, you know it when you're on the edge of it. It's that risk, it's that feeling inside of, I don't know whether I want to trust this person with this information. This is precious and it's very dear to me. But I encourage you to give it a go. Not with everyone in the street, obviously, but with the people that you love and trust and that you're doing life with. I encourage you to give it a go. Thanks.